Cool. Do we want to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, well, hello everyone. Really nice to virtually meet all of you. Welcome to Crash Landing into Product Management. This title was Andy's idea. Today, we're going to be talking to you guys about our stories, give you an overview of product management and the tools and techniques product managers use on a daily basis. We'll also have time for a Q&A, and we're really excited to answer your questions, so feel free to keep them coming throughout this workshop, and someone will feed them to us. All right, so I'm going to turn it to Andy to introduce himself.
Awesome. Thanks, Ananya. So hi, everyone. I'm Andy. I am a data product manager at a fintech AI startup. I also consider myself as a serial entrepreneur. So I'm one of the co-founders of TOHacks and now one of the co-founders of Velar Labs, really helping people focus and scale their projects. Other than that, I work on a lot of side projects on the side. So I have a weekly newsletter, which I'll put in the chat, and also build a lot of cool local tool applications. Back to you, Ananya.
Awesome. I'm Ananya, like mentioned. I'm a third year student at the University of Waterloo, where I study political science and business with a minor in entrepreneurship. So this minor really introduced me to the world of startup culture, and I spent a semester last year working as a product manager for an Austin-based startup. I'm currently a product manager at The Score. I actually just started this week, and this June I will be an On-Deck Catalyst Fellow. I'm a director at TOHacks, which is where I met Andy and eventually co-founded Velar Labs. I love watching Formula One, also enjoy amateur photography, and I'm very passionate about bringing more diversity to tech. So if any of those things interest you, please get in touch.
So a bit more about Velar Labs. Velar Labs is really enabling people to connect you with a community of peers, resources, and mentors to really help you turn your ideas into reality. So we do this through a bunch of different ways. The first one being an online community with coaching and support. And then we also layer that on top with cohort-based courses and startup accelerators. So it's really for those who are looking to learn more about their interests, collaborate with like-minded individuals, and really take ownership of your growth. So what is product management? So we're just going to do one quick slide here. What is PM? So PM here is really about the intersection of design, engineering, and the business. So let's break that down into each of the components. So design, really thinking about the optimal visual, the user experience, the interactions for the product that you want to build. Engineering is really all about building the product. So you can think about terms like the technical roadmap, tech stacks, MERN, LAMP, you name it, to really help drive and build the product. And then lastly, the business. So the supporting functions, you got sales, finance, marketing, is really all about allocating those resources and being able to build what the user wants. So with product management, it looks like a lot of different things at different companies. There are different names for the roles depending on the company you're at, even if you're at the same seniority level. You might have heard of different variations of the term product management. So for example, a product marketing manager, or even for me, a data product manager. So there's a lot of different terms out there. But then at the end of the day, it's all about being the advocate for the user. So really thinking about, okay, what is the product vision? What is the roadmap? And how do we make sure that we are on track to build a product that our user desperately needs? So it's really all about making those trade-offs and really prioritizing against all the different stakeholders, right? So again, bridging the gap between the design, engineering, and the business side of things. All right. So with the introduction to product management kind of out of the way, we'd love to kind of share our non-traditional paths to product management. So for me, I do have a non-technical background. So in undergraduate, I went to Queens. I went through the accounting path. Actually, I was set to be an accountant, but what ended up happening was I met this small fintech AI startup that I'm currently with right now. I was helping out with doing some business analysis, market analysis, some financial analysis, you name it. And then in my last internship back in summer 2018, I kind of had the chance to kind of get into the more technical side. So data analysis, Python, pandas, that kind of stuff. Nothing too technical, but what that ultimately resulted to, in addition to all the wealth of knowledge that I gained during that summer internship, they gave me a full-time offer to return as a product manager. So what that really meant was I had about a semester to, one, take all the courses that I really wanted to, and two, also kind of prepare for this new role in product management. And it's been almost 2.5 full years that I've been there as a product manager, learned a lot, and alongside I've built a ton of projects on the side. And I was also able to lead a product team last year in TOHacks, working on a judging application, as well as now this year really supporting our product managers and really setting out that high level roadmap and execution.
All right. So like Andy mentioned, I am not a technical product manager either, which is really strange. Usually PMs are either comp sci majors or software engineering majors. I study arts at university, like I mentioned. I'm in the political science program. So I'm doing a minor in entrepreneurship that really exposed me to the world of PM. And my first product role was at an Austin-based startup that helped small businesses accelerate digital transformation. This was really as a result of the pandemic that the company sort of explored the problem space. But I was able to get the position because I knew a fair bit about the problem space, and I leveraged that knowledge as a PM while making decisions about the high level strategy of the product, and I helped flesh out the roadmap. When I came back to school the next semester, I did some courses to establish foundational PM skills. You can find a lot of these on Coursera or Udemy. Some of them are free with your university email. So didn't really invest a lot of money into figuring out whether I wanted to do it because I was still on the fence about whether product was the right fit for me, if I actually had the skills to make it in PM. And there's a lot of myths about the fact that you have to be a comp sci major, you have to know how to code in a billion different languages to be able to even apply to PM jobs. I remember when I was initially applying, a lot of them had leak code challenges. I remember I was applying to a company where they asked me to do a coding interview, and I was like, I last coded in 8th grade, so this is probably not going to be for me. But I didn't realize there was a lot of ways to get into it other than just working. So I set up a couple of side projects where I was in charge of the end-to-end product and I didn't have to answer to anyone because I was doing it myself. So that really helped me gain confidence in my skills as a product manager. I was able to use these skills and this confidence to get a current co-op at the score, which is where I work. And like Andy mentioned, PMs do different things at different companies. And this current job really differs from what I've been used to doing. So most of my prior PM experience has been with small teams where I'm working on large scale product development, making very big changes that kind of affect the entire product. So you can think of it as being the CEO of the product essentially. But at a large tech company like the Score, there's many hierarchies in place and it's a much more structured program. So I work on a smaller scope. I work under strict mentorship, which is also important to experience because that's how you will probably be working in the tech world if you're not at a startup. And a lot of startups don't hire PMs just because the CEO acts as the PM for the entire product. So your typical product experience will probably be with a smaller team working on a much more structured project that doesn't change a lot. So it's really important to experience those kind of work as well. Cool. So now that you know a little bit about us, we are going to talk about PM frameworks and processes. This is very important in my opinion because the kind of skills you have and the kind of practices you set down in your foundation shape the kind of PM you become. And you want to be a PM who is organized and who, excuse my French, has their life together rather than being one that's chaotic and all over the place because you're working alongside a lot of different teams and you need to be up to date on the requirements each team has for you. Otherwise, you're just going to be very chaotic and not effective at all. So first, when we talk about documentation, a system of tracking and logging every decision you make is very important. Startups are very bad at this and are known for having a lax culture of documentation, which causes delayed decision making and information loss. So if you make this a habit from your first meeting, you will truly be set and you will be referred to as someone who has their life together, which is what you want to be doing. This is a screenshot of a PM staple. It's called a product spec. This is one I actually worked on previously. This is a baseline document containing all of the necessary information for the product at a glance. And it is used by design, dev, and executive teams across companies to get high level information about the product, what status it is, and if there's any blocks that they need to deal with. So this is really important. Cannot stress this enough. Next, I'm going to talk about some sprint management tools. So too often what PMs do is spend so much time planning that they don't have enough time to execute. And this results in delayed products, delayed feature releases, and sometimes when you're working with external stakeholders, like the government or regulatory bodies, you need to have enough time to adjust for these releases. So tools like Trello, Asana, Notion, which we use at TOHacks and Velar Labs, really help counter this. They're essentially Kanban boards, which help measure feature progress and, again, any blocks you have so you can resolve them and move on, essentially. Cool. So the next step is to visually map your elements. This helps design and dev teams identify and prioritize feature requirements. So this screenshot is a feature mapping exercise I did for a project I worked on. You can see that the major arms of this diagram are the main features we wanted to include in our project. And then we go into detail about their role in the infrastructure they require from a technical perspective. So this is really important. It just helps you, if you're a visual learner, this will make sense to you. It just helps you visualize what the product will look like in the end. And this is a really easy way to identify how much work goes into it, because if you talk about it, it doesn't seem like a lot of work. But as you start listing requirements, you realize how much investment you have to make in terms of time and resources. Cool. Lastly, PMs work with a lot of design teams to turn the product from a document, like we saw before, to an aesthetically appealing, functional platform. The platform can change. It depends on what the product requirements are. This screenshot is an example of a product that I worked on that was a website. So this is the usability test we created, and it helped us map how intuitive the site was to use and where users were experiencing pain points in navigation. All right, so that was a lot of information. Going to stop for questions. I cannot see the chat, so someone can tell me if there are questions. That would be awesome.
None at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Please, I hope that made sense. I happy to talk about any of these documentations or systems in general. Okay, next part is a question I get really often on LinkedIn and on Twitter and stuff like that. And it's, should I become a PM? And long story short, TLDR, I cannot tell you. I do not know if you'd make a good PM. But our hope with this presentation is that we've given you enough information to make an informed choice. Nevertheless, some bullet points that I actually found in a newsletter that Andy will talk about resources in a minute, but this is a checklist that I found, and this is obviously not exhaustive, but if you like solving people's problems, leading a team, communicating, making decisions, creating amazing experiences for people, and being organized, you will probably be a good fit for product management. One thing that is really important to note is that in today's day and age, it's become like a buzzword, and people think it's really glamorous and you get to ship products and you work across teams and it's really cool. But the reality is my day is just full of meetings. I'm talking to different people all the time. If you are not an extrovert, this gets really draining really quickly. It's always cams on, you're leading meetings, and it gets really tiring sometimes. So that is definitely something to account for. You have to have excellent people management skills when it comes to product, because again, you'll be communicating across teams, and often you'll be one team's only liaison when it comes to the project. So you have to have up-to-date information, not trying to scare you, but just trying to paint an accurate picture of what PM looks like. Communication is really important. The team that I work on currently, I've never met anyone on it. So it is really important to over-communicate. Being ambiguous is a really bad look on a product manager. You need to be making sure that everyone knows what you're talking about. Sometimes uncomfortable conversations fall to the product manager to have. So if all of this still sounds good to you, then chances are that you're going to be a good product manager. And yeah, going to kick it over to Andy now.
Awesome. Thanks, Ananya. So let's say you decided that the role really sounds really interesting and you want to dabble more and explore if product management for you. So what I have here is one slide that I like to call the value and commitment pyramid. Basically, it outlines from the lower rungs to the higher rungs an escalating level of commitment of some things that you can do to really get into product management, but also the value that you extract as you go up each rung increases. So let's start off with the bottom rung here, reading and activities and communities. So there's a lot of different materials, blogs, newsletters, podcasts, a lot of stuff out there. Some books that I recommend include Cracking the PM Interview. That's a really good one. Decode and Conquer as well, really helps with interview prep. And if you're really interested in reading more about the PM role and really diving into the roles and responsibilities day to day, or even learning for I guess what experts in the field are doing, I would recommend Cracking the PM Career as well. In terms of community, there's this great Slack community called Product Buds. It's a free community, really welcoming, and they do a ton of workshops, webinars. They have protothons, really big community. They also help each other with any roles that might come up and resume LinkedIn reviews. So I definitely recommend checking that out. Over to the second rung here is really about taking any activities that you either do for your extracurriculars or for your current job and being able to hopefully transfer them into specific roles and responsibilities that you might be doing as a product manager, right? So some examples of this include taking notes during a user interview or helping conduct some market research, analyzing some data, sitting in on design sessions with designers and really seeing how they're thinking through the whole product experience, or just even helping out with the engineering team and doing some sprint planning. Over to the last item, so the item with probably the highest level of commitment and the most value you're able to get out is building out a portfolio. So you always see designers and developers, they have their own portfolios. I believe that product managers should also have their own portfolio as well. So product managers are really defined by two main key performance indicators. So one, the outcomes that they help drive, and as well as the processes, so what they used along the way. So some examples of some outcomes include either the product or feature itself, if it's a live product, a demo video, or even just like an analytics report. And then some evidence for processes includes product specs, maybe a analysis spreadsheet, or just a post reflecting on the lessons and the takeaways from your experience. Other than that, you really want to make sure that you take advantage of the time here you have at the hackathon. So really try to build connections outside of your hackathon team, right? Feel free to get in contact with us. You've probably seen a few of our messages going out in announcements and the rest of the Discord server as well. So, don't be shy, do reach out. Learn from speakers and workshops. So it's great that everyone's here taking this in live, but also see if there's other speakers or workshops that really resonate with you. And then lastly, taking action, right? So we're absorbing a lot of content here, right? That really kind of falls into the readings and community tier, but you can see that most of the value do come when you actually take action and do something with it. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for joining. If anything we said here, really resonates with you, or you're interested in how we can really help you achieve your goals, feel free to get in touch. We do also have a quick 3-minute questionnaire for everyone to fill out, and we will be selecting someone to basically receive a free 30-minute coaching session just to really talk about product management, your goals, or what you want to do post-hackathon, and as well as a scholarship for an upcoming bootcamp that we're hosting later this summer. So let me put that in the chat here. And then if not, there's also a website you can check out, velarlabs.io. If you subscribe there on our website tonight, we'll be sending you a PM interview bank as well that I kind of use to help hone my skills and kind of help other people prepare for product management interviews. But yeah, we'd love to take any questions now. Feel free to put that in the chat or in the Q&A session.
Just want to mention that the interview bank that Andy brought up is the one that he used with me, and we've used to talk with each other as well, and it clearly worked. But yeah, and I'm gonna stop sharing real quick so I can see like questions and stuff. But yeah, if you have questions, we're just gonna hang out a little bit.
Yeah, there's a couple questions in the chat. Like, what are some skills that PMs need to have?
This is interesting. First thing I will say is critical thinking skills. A lot of times in interviews, people will ask you questions on strategy, operations, product design, and just general critical thinking. I feel like this is one area where political science has really helped because arts really sharpens your critical thinking skills. Communication, like I mentioned, you're going to be talking to a lot of people all day long. And also just prioritization. There's not always going to be, you're not going to have the resources you want to build what you want. So you need to prioritize between technical constraints, deadlines, stuff like that. So just in general, those are the skills that make good PMs.
Yeah, another question was, how do PMs differ from consultants?
Yeah, I can take that on. So I've never been a consultant, so I can just kind of provide my high-level insights there. But I really think that the PM is a lot more integrated with different functions. A term that my company likes to use is, product managers really being the glue to kind of keep everything together, keep everyone in the loop, and really working with their stakeholders. Again, focusing on the end users, and actually working towards the actual, implementation and execution of things. I think from a consulting point of view, a lot of it comes with the high level planning and developing a roadmap as to how certain things will get executed, but they may not be as hands-on in terms of actually working towards building something and executing on it.
I can actually answer this because I was a part of Waterloo's Management Consulting Club, and I did a lot of pro bono consulting over the last summer. So the main difference between consulting and product management is that when you're a consultant, you have no control over how your recommendations are implemented. And as a consultant, this was a really frustrating part for me because I like having control over the end-to-end process. And it was really hard to not be able to see how your recommendations played out because it's up to the client to take them or not take them, use them or not use them, and you have no control. But with product management, you get to control even post feature shipping. You get to see how it plays out in the market. You get to collect analytics on it, and you can really dive into how well the product is doing, which gives me a lot of satisfaction, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Another question is, are you essentially a mediator / advocate?
In a way, I mean, it's a part of the job description, yes. There's a lot of politics that comes with being a product manager. A lot of teams, a lot of companies have a lot of politics going on within them. So mediation is really important, especially because sometimes you're the only way two different teams can communicate. So yes, but that's not all product management is.
Yeah. Next question was, I've been told PM is a jack of all trades. Is this true? What do you think you have to master when it comes to being a PM?
Yeah, so I can take this on. So when I first started as a PM at the AI startup, I was touching a lot of different functions, mainly because, well, we didn't have enough full-time resources in there to cover it, right? So in terms of helping out with either operational work, HR, marketing, sales, customer success. So I think that being able to be a pretty good generalist is a good start, but then being able to niche down in a specific avenue is something that's important as well. So thinking about, is it the marketing aspect, or is it the technical aspect, or is it the growth aspect you're interested in? Definitely thinking through that. And then in terms of mastering things, I mean, you're always continuously learning, right? There's always new methodologies or different ways of applying things, new research. Even though you might get certain certifications out there, there's just so much out there, and you kind of almost have to realize that you might not be, a super master in anything or in a specific field that you're interested in, but you're always kind of working towards it, and just being able to really connect with others, especially in the industry that you're in, would really help further that as well. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. Last question. If you don't have any PM experience, how can you start to get a job in it?
Build your own projects.
Yep.
This is what I mean. No one can stop you from making your own things, right? So this is something that I did a lot. As soon as you start showing potential employers that you have the skills it takes to create a project, they don't care about whether you worked at a big company or a small startup, or even if it's your own project, because all you're demonstrating to them is you have the skills it takes to be a good product manager. One thing I will also say is that if you are applying as a university student, companies expect that they will teach you things about product management. They don't expect you to come in with a senior PM's level of knowledge. They will invest in teaching you. I know a lot of tech companies now have rotational associate PM programs where you spend 2 years just cycling through different teams. So don't think that you have to have it all under control. There's definitely a learning curve that comes with being a product manager, but long story short, start working on your own projects. Sometimes certificates and foundational courses also really help, but I'm against those just because you learn a lot of theoretical knowledge, and sometimes that's just not what you use in day-to-day life as a PM. But yeah, essentially just build your own stuff is my long answer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy and Ananya. Those are really informative workshop. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. Andy and Ananya can stay on and answer it there, or you could also message them on Discord.